it's Ahavah again. Today is Divine Mercy Sunday and it's April 16, 2023. I'm making this video to kind of recall events in 2004. It was the same Sunday and it's one of my happiest moments of my life. I've always remembered it since 2004, and it's 19 years already, and the next year it will be 20 years. And I would, for the very first time, passed on and discussed the events that transpired 19 years ago. To start with, actually, I mentioned him already in my previous video. He was this Franciscan friar, a priest whom I encountered while I was visiting for several occasions at the Holy Sepulchre. For one reason or another, he became ill, and what's so unique and peculiar, actually, not I don't want to use the word unique, but peculiar about all this is the day before he fell ill, he actually asked me to pray for him, and he was so insistent because I've encountered him, I think, several times. I'm using the word encounter because we hardly knew each other because one of the language barrier, he doesn't know how to speak English. Second, the time, the moment that I encountered him was very short because he has his task. He was assigned as the confessor for the pilgrims that were visiting the Holy Sepulchre at that time, and when there are no pilgrims, then that's the only time I actually would be able to talk to him. And there were several instances like that. So it wasn't something that was really very intimate, or we became really close. No, it was really just, that's why I use the word encounter. And what was peculiar, as I said, is that day, because I've met him several times already. Oh, sorry, encountered him several times, and I don't know, he was, as I mentioned in my other video, the last one regarding the men I was attached to. From the moment I first saw him, as I mentioned in that video, there was this connection, and I was drawn to the Holy Sepulchre. One, because of the significance of the place to my faith, and I was really making tambay there. My routine was in the morning I'm there, and then before 9, I think, after the masses have ended, I would go to Mount Olives, Bethpage, and I would pray in so many ways. anyways, I was asked to go there to pray, so I did pray. I didn't expect that I would meet or encounter someone. And the day that he fell ill was also one peculiar moment, as if I was really very much drained of some sort. And the thought of him leaving or dying was something I could not fathom in my consciousness at that time, as if I won't survive, although I, I haven't even spent an hour with him, all in all, because it was very short. Sometimes there were no pilgrims, so I would be, and then there are a masses being celebrated inside the chapel, so I would be sitting outside the chapel in front of the Mary Magdalene altar near the confessional, and that's where I would be sitting, and that's the only time that we had the opportunity of really trying to converse. So it wasn't that serious or something that is really worthy of that attachment that I had. And it was so weird because I haven't felt that way before. And as if I was very much consumed, and each time there is this update that because he was actually assigned there in the Holy Sepulchre, and there was this Irish priest, Father Fergus, who's from Orange County, California, and he was actually the one who's very welcoming because he's Irish, and he's very he has a very good personality. He's always smiling, and he's so talkative. He can really start up a conversation. So that's actually the first time they invited me to inside. All, not me only, but obviously all the participants or attendees in the celebration were invited, and that's where he announced that the status of Antonio, Father Antonio, and I couldn't understand what was going on with me. I felt so affected, and then I realized that I was, because of those short moments that we had spent together. I became attached to him, and because of the illness and the day before he became ill contributed all to this peculiarity of those events. And after he asked me, and after I've been informed or I have received news of his illness, I included him in my prayer because I'm visiting churches. My routine there was actually visiting churches and praying for intentions that I'm inspired not to discuss. And that's why I was there. And I included him in my prayer. And then there was this instance that, this attachment was very much manifesting, and I don't know, I could literally feel his pain, and it made me so emotional because I felt that his organs were failing, and I don't know how I feel it, but I felt it. And we were praying because the mass, there were few attendees, or there were few parishioners. So what happened was they made a circle, if I'm not mistaken, and it was when in that circle that I really felt very peculiar at that day, and I I couldn't understand what was happening, and I was wondering why I'm so consumed with this emotion. I hardly know the person, and as if I would not survive if he passed on or dies. That was the my disposition, and I was wondering why. I don't even know him, and yet it happened. And there was this instance. It was a mass in the Calvary. I was so consumed by the desire of seeing him, and see how he's doing. All of a sudden, I felt that I was engulfed by this beautiful presence emanating from my heart, engulfing me. And then all of a sudden, I saw myself in a room. And based on how the room looks like, it's a hospital. There were oxygen tanks, and then the bed was, it's not a new bed, it's an old bed. And then I couldn't see who was on the bed, but I was at this is the bed, I was at the foot. I was obviously kneeling. My posture is my posture when I'm the posture that I was in Calgary. I was just, all of a sudden, I found myself there in that place. And then the door has an opening where people could view the inside. That's what I remember. And it's white, it's painted white. And then all of a sudden, I closed my eyes and I found myself back again in the Calvary, as if I never left. As if I never left. And what is so peculiar is the guardian. He wasn't yet the guardian back then of the Holy Sepulchre, but he became the guardian. He's also Polish. Looked at me as if he has seen a ghost. I don't know why, but because when I opened my eyes, I kind of stare. My eyes went to his direction, and I saw him staring at me. I think he was watching me, and from the look of his on his face, he says he's like he's seen a ghost of some sort, and that's one peculiar thing. I think because of the intense desire, because I think that was during the doxology, the consecration. I think so, or after receiving communion. I don't know which part, but it's a portion where the congregation kneels, and I place my hand over my chest and prayed so intently. I really wanted to see how he's doing. I couldn't accept only this feed updates from Father Fergus at the time, and I was really very much consumed. And all of a sudden, found myself in that room. I don't know if it's him. What I know is, I think it's just less than a minute. I found myself somewhere. It's so weird. But before that thing, as I mentioned, I was engulfed by this beautiful presence, like as if there's this force that revolved around me. And then I placed my hand over my chest and then prayed intently. And then there's this beautiful presence engulfing my entire body. And then all of a sudden, I opened my eyes and I found myself there, no longer at Calvary, but in that room. And I think the reason why that happened is there's this intensity to seek Him. And I was really very much worried. After that, couple of weeks, then Easter, Holy Monday, oh, that was so emotional. I was supposed to join Nasa Coro and the other Filipinas workers there that I've met to Emmaus. But the problem is, I kind of got confused and I was left. Naiwan ako, and that's why I was trying to go to Emmaus, but they brought me to the other Emmaus, which was in the Abu Ghosh, which was the place I stayed before. I didn't know that that's the other Emmaus. I didn't know that there were two Emmaus. The one actually three. Abu Ghosh, the Latrun, and then there's another one. The one that they went to, which I failed to join them. So what happened is I went to Abu Ghosh because I thought that's where it should be, and lo and behold, it's not there. So what I did, I just went to the oratory in the Our Lady of the Ark, where I resided for, I think, a week, I think, or 5 days. I'm not too sure, before proceeding to Jerusalem. And that's where I prayed for him again, and that's where I knew that he would be okay, because the wind was, because the setup in the church is that there is this oratory, and then you open the tabernacle, and then the Eucharist is exposed. You could literally be directly in front of the Eucharist. That's why I like it there. I spent so many hours there. I couldn't believe that I've been there for 5 hours, I think. As if I was just there for an hour. When I closed my eyes, when I was very much into the adoration thing, that's normally what takes place. I kneel, and then all of a sudden I would be, I don't know if I'm asleep, but my consciousness is awake. But I think I'm in a state between sleeping and being awake. So what happened is I went there and prayed for Father Antonio, and because he asked me. So what was so peculiar is that again, that beautiful presence came out of nowhere, and it consoled, because I was, before going there, I went to the Benedictine monastery, the French Benedictine monastery down there, because the church is up in the hill. And I was crying and crying because I was very much, and I felt so weird because why am I crying? I don't even know Father Antonio. I encountered him only what, less than, if you total all our encounter together, it would be less than an hour, you know. So I was so, I felt so weird. And then, but I had to accept the reality of my emotions, so I just went along, you know. And then as I was praying, as I was crying, the late bishop of the Benedictine was there. He was the one presiding, and he was looking at me because I was sobbing and I was crying too much, because I really felt that he's suffering, and I felt that I won't be able to see him anymore. And I really felt so emotional that time. So after the mass, I went up there and I prayed like I usually do. I opened the tabernacle and exposed the Eucharist, and then there are pillows where you could sit and or kneel if you want to, and there are benches also. And then I prayed. Then all of a sudden the wind was blowing, and then while praying, because the Eucharist is in front of me, because I was the only one there, and when I was praying, I don't know why I'm so connected with him. You know, it's like as if I'm one with him. It's like I could feel his ordeal of some sort. And then all of a sudden, that presence that I experienced when I was at Calvary, you know, that brought me to a room in, I think it's a hospital bed, but I don't know if it's him there. I didn't see, it was too fast. And then there was this consciousness that he was okay already. And because, mind you, I was crying all the time while praying, and then I felt this beautiful presence, and it is like telling me that everything is okay already, and I felt this ease. And because when I went there, I was so depressed, and then when I left, I was so uplifted and so happy and jovial. And then that's it. Lo and behold, Divine Mercy Sunday, I could still remember it because Holy Monday, nasa Coro, because I was left, invited me to go to Encarim, to St. John the Baptist church there. And so we attended Mass at the Patriarchate. And then after that, we proceeded to Encarim because I do not know how to go there. So she brought me there. And then we visited the church. We stayed there, and then we were going out already and going back to Jerusalem. Then all of a sudden, we saw this Polish person's Father Casimiro, who's also residing at the Holy Sepulchre and a sister of Divine Mercy. And they visited Father Antonio, and what is so peculiar that day also, before all that, is that that was the first time I visited St. John the Baptist's birthplace, tradition says. So there's this marker And then Nasakora told me that we go down, that we will be going there and then to pray and everything. And obviously, what consumed my mind and my all at the time was Father Antonio and his state. And what was so peculiar again actually is that after praying for him, I kissed the marker, and lo and behold, I am again visited by that beautiful presence, as if I was radiating. And I knew already at the time that he's okay because of the events in Abagosh, plus the events in the Church of St. John Baharim, or St. John the Baptist. So after that, we were going back to Jerusalem. We saw the two Polish citizen, Father Casimiro and the Sister of the Divine Mercy. They were talking, and Nasokoro knows how to speak Italian and Hebrew, but me, I do not know. So I was just trying to try to listen in and see if I could understand anything. So, and then they talked about Father Antonio, and then Nasokor told me, oh, they came from Father Antonio and he's okay already and everything. But I couldn't actually react the way I wanted, but because obviously it was so weird because I do not know the encounter that I have with Father Antonio doesn't merit or warrant this intense emotional attachment I had for him. That's why I was so conscious and so careful not to manifest any emotion beyond what should be. So I try to, manage how I should react, but within me, I was so happy because my prayers were heard, and they said that they prayed the Divine Mercy already together, and he's awake already from his coma, and I think he would be discharged soon. And I was so happy. That's why I was so happy that time, and that's why I'm sharing it, because that is the Divine Mercy Sunday, when the concrete, because in Abu Ghosh it was only a consciousness, and when we were just a few minutes before I actually received news that he really woke up from his coma, was also a consciousness. So I don't have a concrete information on how he's really doing. And in July, when I returned back there, because that's really the one thing that I would, one of, again, my happiest moment was, I knew already that he was okay because I saw in the pictures that he is already among the friars, because in their website they upload these pictures and of the friars that were serving at that time. So from time to time I saw him, so I know he's already okay. So I didn't expect to see him upon returning there, because I returned it was a Friday, so there is this Via de la Rosa, because every Friday there's a Via de la Rosa. This is already July 2004, and after the Via de la Rosa, because I didn't see him, after the Via de la Rosa, the blessing of the Custos and everything, so everybody was, going everywhere. So then I heard a voice, a familiar voice. He was calling me. My old name, Agustino, he was calling me. I couldn't see him because of a lot of people were there in the church. Then all of a sudden, as if, the people were like opening up, and I saw him sitting near the opening, going to the convent. of the Catholics, of the Latin here. Because there are two doors. One is the chapel and the sacristy, and then there is this door which is under the piano behind the confession. So there was this bench of some sort there. So he was sitting together with the other friars. I could still remember. And he was calling me, And then I looked at him, and then he stood up, and he was so frail and so thin. I was about to cry because, because I thought I would not see him anymore. And then we met at the near the opening, near the altar of Saint Mary Magdalene, going to the chapel, and because the procession will be starting already. Actually, yeah, will be starting or has started or is coming already towards the end already. So after conversing a little, we proceeded to the chapel together. We're seated beside each other, and then because there was an exposition also, so it was so, and then there was a brief adoration, and we were seated beside each other. It was so, I was so happy at that time because the emotion that I had at that time was that I won't be able to see him anymore, and even up to now, when I am a little bit teary-eyed, and I still could remember how it felt, because he was so frail. He has this cane when he approached me, and he was talking, but he was trying his best to converse, and then I think he invited me, or I was the one who invited him to go to because all the friars went inside the chapel because it's already because the procession is concluded already, so there would be now a benediction, an exposition and benediction. So we went inside and we prayed there, and I was so grateful. I feel so blessed that here is the priest who asked me to pray for him, and he's alive, and I'm again before the Blessed Sacrament where I prayed for him, and in the chapel when I felt that draining force, and so basically that's what happened in Divine Mercy Sunday 2004, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life because I received news of God's shall we say generosity, because I really thought that based on that's why I was so anxious, because the only information I receive is coming from Father Fergus and some other friars who are conversing about him, but not directly talking to me. But Father Fergus was announcing it, and he was asking to pray for him because he's not out of danger, something like that. So basically, that's what took place 19 years ago. This is the only time I've publicly discussed it, and it is a moment where as far as I'm concerned, God's generosity manifested full time, full load. And seeing him July and alive was such a very, very memorable and priceless episode or juncture in my life that I would always remember. Ta-ta.